Greetings, fellow travelers through time. Today, we delve into the lives of two men who shaped the fate of the Western world. Julius Caesar, the master strategist who shook the foundations of the Roman Republic, and Mark Antony, his charismatic ally, general, and friend. Together, they were the architects of ambition, dreamers of empire. But history does not allow two men to share a single destiny. Join me now as we step into part one of their journey, a tale of power, war, and loyalty, before betrayal would ever take root. In 58 BCE, Rome was a republic bursting at its seams, a powerful beast shackled by internal strife, hunger for land, and political corruption. At its edges lay Gaul, a land of fierce tribes, unknown terrain, and blood-soaked opportunity. Julius Caesar, newly appointed governor of Gaul, marched north with legions not just to conquer, but to build something greater than a province. He sought immortality, and riding beside him was a younger man, brash, bold, and beloved by soldiers, Mark Antony. Antony was no senator's puppet. He had a soldier's heart and a rebel's fire. He laughed louder, fought harder, and lived dangerously. But in Caesar, he saw more than a general. He saw a visionary. For 9 brutal years, the two fought side by side, not as equals, but as something more potent, complementary powers. Caesar was the mind, calculating, strategic, always 3 moves ahead. Antony was the muscle, commanding cavalry, lifting morale, charging when others faltered. Together, they defeated Gallic tribes and quelled rebellions. They laid siege to Alesia, the stronghold of Vercingetorix, a Gallic warlord who united a nation. Surrounded and starving, Caesar's forces faced annihilation. But Antony held the line, leading reinforcements through treacherous terrain to break the enemy. Victory at Alesia wasn't just a military triumph. It was Caesar's coronation in blood. He returned not as a governor, but as a conqueror of Gaul. And Antony, the soldier who stood with him, became his most trusted lieutenant. But Rome was waiting. And Rome does not wait with kindness. Back in Rome, Caesar's victories had stirred panic. Senators whispered of tyranny. Old allies like Pompey turned bitter. Caesar's enemies demanded he lay down his command and return to the city, alone. But Caesar knew this trick well. Return without power, and he would be condemned. And so, in 49 BCE, at a small border river called the Rubicon, Caesar faced his choice. Crossing it meant treason. Not crossing meant submission. He looked to his men, to the future. And then he said the words, "Alia iacta est," the die is cast. Beside him rode Antony, carrying Caesar's orders to every corner of Italy, rallying forces, calming towns, preparing for what would come next. As Caesar's legions marched into Rome, the Senate fled. Pompey escaped to Greece, gathering his own army. Civil war had begun. While Caesar chased Pompey, Antony governed Italy. But he was no politician. Rome grew restless under his rough hand, and Caesar was forced to return, not just to win battles, but to balance power. In 48 BCE, at the Battle of Pharsalus, the final clash between Caesar and Pompey took place. Caesar was outnumbered, his legions hungry. But his strategy was flawless. Antony commanded the left flank, and it was his cavalry that broke Pompey's lines. Pompey fled, defeated, to Egypt, where he was betrayed and murdered by the pharaoh's advisors. And when Caesar followed him, he found not only a kingdom in turmoil, but Cleopatra. Yet even as Caesar navigated Egyptian politics and romance, Antony kept Rome steady. He enforced order, reassured the people, and preserved Caesar's vision. Their bond was unbreakable, soldier and statesman, mind and might. But what neither man knew was that Rome's knives were already being sharpened. By 44 BCE, Caesar stood atop the world. He had restructured Rome, forgiven enemies, raised colonies, distributed land, and even reformed the calendar. He was named dictator for life, a title that made some cheer and others fear. Mark Antony stood beside him still, not only as a general but as consul of Rome. He defended Caesar's policies, quelled rebellions in the Senate, and offered him the crown, though Caesar theatrically declined it. But in the shadows, conspirators gathered, men who believed the Republic was dying. On the morning of March 15th, the Ides of March, Caesar walked into the Senate without his bodyguard. Mark Antony had been delayed, perhaps on purpose, perhaps by betrayal. What happened next would freeze time itself. They stabbed him 23 times, and as Caesar fell, he looked into the eyes of one of his closest, Brutus. Et tu, Brute? Caesar, conqueror of Gaul, master of Rome, was dead. Antony arrived too late, but what he did next would shake history. At the funeral, before the people, Antony stood with Caesar's bloodied robe. He read Caesar's will, revealing gifts to the people, gardens, money, land. Then he asked the crowd, "You all did love him once, not without cause. What cause withholds you then, to mourn for him now?" The people erupted. Riots consumed Rome. The conspirators fled. And Antony, through words, not war, became the voice of vengeance. But as Antony seized control, another figure emerged from the mist. A name written in Caesar's will. A boy of just 18 years. Octavian. From the battlefields of Gaul to the marble halls of Rome, Caesar and Antony rose together, bound by purpose, sharpened by war, and crowned by ambition. But history is not generous with partnerships. In Part 2, we will witness the arrival of Octavian, Caesar's heir, and the slow, inevitable clash between the general and the boy. We will see Cleopatra enter the game, Antony's heart torn between love and empire, and Rome's future hanging in the balance. Thank you for walking through time with me. We've only just begun. Until next time, history awaits.